afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you. A lot of times when people talk about thinking outside the box, they don't understand that there is another box around the first box. That is by J Julliani. I would like to start this afternoon by saying, before we start thinking outside the box, we need to know why we created the box in the first place. 15 years ago, my daughter was in a mainstream school, in a primary school, and she came home one evening with a list of 150 words that she had to learn for the next day, spellings. It was a very long evening. At the end of the evening, she knew about 35 to 40 words. And, well, I didn't know what to do. So it was nearly dinner time. So my husband had just come home from work. And looking at both of us, he says, "What is the matter?" And I told him, "Yep, this is what is the matter. We have 150 words to learn for tomorrow, and we have just got through about 40 words." So he told me, "Okay, let's have dinner and let's see what we can do after that." So dinner was done, and he said, "Okay, show me the list of words." And he sat at his computer and typed them all in. And he said, "Okay, give me 15 minutes." And he typed each word in a different color. Okay, like apple, A in red, P in blue, P in yellow, another one, L in pink, the last E in purple, say. And he did that for the entire list of 150 words and printed it out in color. So he told me, "Okay, get her to look at them now and read through them." So for me, it was like, oh my God, what is this? Everything was all colorful and it was terrible to look at because, I mean, I couldn't even, there were so many colors in it. So anyway, I said, "Okay, let's give it a try." So I called my daughter and we went through each word 2-3 times. And we sat for the next half an hour going through the remaining words that she did not know. In half an hour, she knew all the 150 words. It was not magic. It was nothing really extraordinary. It is just that she learned that way. And we did not know. And we discovered that learning spellings was so easy for her then. It's just that she needed it to be a little in color. So yes, thinking out of the box, that was his idea and something he came across on the net. And it was amazing. She just picked it up 150 words in half an hour. Then there was a time that I used to go to give her her lunchbox in school. And she would bring her little friends to come and meet me. She must have been in the first, second standard. And I would ask her, "Who's this with you?" And she would introduce her friends. "This is roll number 73. This is roll number 36. This is roll number 24. She knew the entire class of 70 plus children only with roll numbers, no names. And then she also got around saying, "Mommy, her roll number last year was 41. And this year it is 39. I don't know why they keep changing the roll numbers every class that they go to. Now I have to remember last year's roll numbers and this year's roll number of theirs." So I said, "Why can't you just remember the names?" But it wouldn't sink in. What sunk in really was that every morning the teacher did a roll call. And she had picked up everybody's roll numbers by just listening to the teacher. Just a roll call of 5 minutes that the teacher must be taking in the morning. And she had picked it up. So yes, it is amazing how children learn. And we have not a clue what really, gets them learning. So how do we identify that? And I wish somebody would have told me how to tap that potential of hers of learning these numbers and things like that, because she was not very good in maths. So yes, that means there was some kind of numeric learning with her, but not the run-of-the-mill kind of learning. So yes, when teaching children, in fact, all children, it has to be out of the box because every child learns differently. So Yes, without further ado, our first speaker this afternoon, we have with us Dr. Gauri Nadkarni Choudhary. She has done her MPhil in clinical psychology and awarded the Bry Air Gold Medal. She has a PhD topic related to dementia and early onset and intervention. She is currently a consultant clinical psychologist at Midolak Healthcare and at Shreyas Hospital. She was a visiting clinical psychologist at Sayadri Hospital Limited and Aadhar Hospital, Solapur. She is a visiting faculty at Symbiosis, Ferguson College, Vishwakarma University, BJS, Bharatiya Jain Sangatna, and SP College. She also was a lecturer at the K.S. Hegde Medical Academy, Mangalore. I had the privilege of getting to know Dr. Gauri about 14 years ago when I took my daughter to her for counseling and therapy sessions. She was extremely patient, and my daughter was so comfortable with her. Thank you for your time, Dr. Gauri, for being with us today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about what Karen was saying and how we focus on run-of-the-mill ideas or tried and tested ideas when we talk about education and learning, and how we insist that our child learns um, alphabets and numbers and additions and fractions in a particular manner. But today, what I'm going to talk about is learning these very concepts, but using something which is generally considered the opposite of education, right? When we talk about education, we talk about studying, we talk about sitting down in one place and doing writing and reading and arithmetic. And if you ask me, or if you ask any child, what is the opposite of study, he will tell you the opposite of study is play, right? And you study for a while and then you go out or you sit inside and you play. But play has always been a source of learning. Play has been a source of learning which happens without the child even knowing that they are learning, right? Whether it's a special child, whether it's a child with uh, any specific ability, all of us learn through play. If you look at our stories, or if you look at the traditional plays that we always had growing up, right? Um, let's start with peekaboo, okay? Where you cover your face and then you appear in front of the child when the child is just about a baby, right? And that is the play that the child engages in for the first time. Now, this peekaboo is also based on these on psychological concepts of understanding something known as object permanence, that the object continues to exist even when it is not visible to you. So play starts teaching uh, right at that age, right? Then if other small activities that we do with children, let's say the rattle. Now, what is the rattle? Rattle is teaching the child a grip that the child is going to use when they grow up to hold a crayon or a pencil. The child is also learning that when I move my wrist, the rattle makes a sound. And what is the child learning? That his action has a consequence and he has a control over that consequence. So he can manipulate things to learn. So, play is something that is a part of learning. And I think if you can teach a child to play, then you can teach a child to maybe go ahead and do a PhD also. So, let's talk about basic play. It doesn't have to be fancy objects. I'm sure if you've noticed your child growing up, they're more interested in playing with the box that the toy came in rather than the expensive toy, by itself. So, play. What is it that we can do through play? This lockdown, I have a daughter who's about 14-year-old, and she's a teenager, and I never thought I could play with a teenager. But even playing with her, I realized that I taught her a lot of concepts. I taught her a lot of things which otherwise were boring, which otherwise were a part of syllabus. But let's start young. I'm going to show you something very simple. This is a doll, okay? Any doll. Now, what does the doll teach you? Okay, the doll is a play object. It's a toy, and we often think that or let's say boys playing with a doll is frowned upon, or girls playing with dolls are looked at differently. But let's just take a doll. Have you ever thought what all I can teach my child using a doll? Yes, obviously I can teach the body parts. Okay, my body parts, the doll's body parts, somebody else's body parts. I can teach movement when I am able to move the body part of the doll. But this doll can also be taught to talk about emotions, to talk about how the doll is sick. Now let's say the doll is sick, what will you do? You will take care of the doll, maybe cover it with a blanket, maybe take it to a doctor. So, what are you teaching? You're teaching emotional skills, you're teaching empathy, you're teaching how to take care of someone. The doll is hungry. What would you do? So, the child takes a spoon and feeds the doll, right? The amount of eye hand coordination, the amount of motor coordination that is required to do that simple act is what is needed when you have to copy from the board. You have to look up and you have to look down back in your book, right? So, what is that? That is eye hand coordination or simple motor coordination, which comes when you're playing with the doll, right? When you are holding the doll, you are teaching him how to deal with people gently, not to throw the doll when you're angry, not to, put the doll anywhere and everywhere, but to deal with people in a way which does not hurt them. You're teaching good touch, you're teaching bad touch, you're teaching how you should respect the doll, right? So, a simple toy which does not cost you much money, right, can be taught from, you can teach from simple body parts to a more complex emotional intelligence. These are just big words. We've all learned that. We as a child never knew of emotional intelligence, but we've all played with dolls and we've all learned emotional intelligence through the simple act of playing with a doll, right? So let's not look at play as something the child is wasting time in. Play is something that the child is learning through. Then the other toy is a ball. Okay. Yes, it talks about grip, it talks about throwing, it talks about picking up, but it also talks about rotation and revolution. It talks about planets, it talks about big and small, it talks about colors. This ball can talk about emotions, right? So every single object that we have played with has taught us something. It's just that it happens so passively that we have no idea that the child is learning, and that is always the biggest advantage of teaching through play. Now, a lot of children that come to clinic, their parents complain that this child watches a lot of cartoons, and I've told them, okay, once sit down with the child and watch a cartoon, and then talk about the cartoon. What would you have done in that situation? So let's say take the cartoon of Chota Bheem, right? And he, if you did you think that this Chota Bheem reacted correctly? Do you think you would have done something different in that situation? Let's say Chota Bheem has a fight with someone else. What would you do in that situation? Often when my daughter was younger, we would mute the TV and we would watch cartoons or we would watch films. And just based on the face, we would try and understand the dialogue or what the person was trying to say. Imagine the amount of non-verbal communication that my daughter learned just by watching cartoons, just by watching the face, right? Because a lot of times it's not language that we need to focus on. We need to focus on facial expressions, the non-verbal gestures. And this came only through me and her sitting and watching cartoons on mute and understanding emotions, understanding language beyond what is being said and more about what is being expressed. Then the use of stories. We come from a culture which is rich in stories, rich in folklore, rich in Panchatantra, rich in a lot of stories. And these stories not just teach you about memory. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who make the child read for the sake of increasing vocabulary and make the child remember and by heart the story. But that's not the essence of story. I remember telling my child stories and I would give names to the characters. So lion was called something and the mouse was called something. And the next time I told the story, I wouldn't remember the names, but she would, right? And she would tell me, but last time you said the name was something else. So yes, all this happens simultaneously. Vocabulary, memory, all this is happening simultaneously. But you are teaching them about relating an experience. Today, when the child is not coming home and telling you what happened in school, why is that happening? Because the child was never taught to say or relate in a sequence what happened to them. How will they come and tell you if they just by hearted the story? But if they had made up the story on their own, even if it was wrong, it was talking about sequence that this happened. My teacher said this, and then I felt bad, and that's why I got angry, and that's why I started crying. So the child can relate events, the child can make a sequence and relate it to you in maybe limited vocabulary, because that's not really important. But the child coming and talking to you and telling you a lot about what happened in school or what happened at someone else's house or why they got upset is what is important further ahead in life, right? Then we've used something like this. This is a plain simple ruler. What I had done is I had cut out a picture of my daughter, just the face, and we had made a slide over here. Okay. And this was happy and sad. Okay. One end was happy, one end was sad. And once in a while, whenever she experienced a change in emotion, she would slide it. Okay. From happy, she would make it to sad, or from sad, she would make it to happy. Why did we do this? Because we wanted to teach the child to relate what is happening in their life and what the emotion they are expressing, right? So yes, the sliding was again an eye hand coordination activity, but she also learned to relate objects. And that is what we do in science, isn't it? We learn to relate objects, that when the earth spins there is day and night, or when you put this in that, some chemical reaction happens. So it's nothing more than learning effect and consequences, or cause and effect, which is what we did with the simple ruler. Today, as a 14-year-old, we play board games, we play a lot of board games. And I have never seen her pick up mathematics better than when we were playing board games, because she was counting, she was adding, she was subtracting. Or let's say the example Karen gave us about her daughter remembering roll numbers. And I remember my daughter used to do same. She would tell me the entire name and the roll number, and she would again say that last year it was different. And then one day I asked her that if he was last year 39 and this year 41, why do you think that happened? So she said two more people came in. So 39 plus 2 became 41. Now, this was simple addition. I didn't do it. She did it. She likes watching cricket. And believe me, she could calculate run rate and how many balls and how many runs to be done without me teaching her any mathematics. She learned it on her own. Something as complicated as division was learned watching cricket, because she wanted to know how many runs needed to be scored in particular overs. And I'll just show you a last object, okay, which we have been using very often recently. This is a this is a typical masala ka dabba that all of us have in our houses, right? This is a great play activity. We've learned part, half a spoon, quarter a spoon. We've learned sequence, what goes first. I have taught her heat, the chapter heat based on only cooking. I have taught her how she has to coordinate her movements to put something like mustard because the oil is hot. how she has to stir clockwise and anti-clockwise, how she has to follow a particular sequence. So what did we do? We used to list down all ingredients. That taught her spellings of something as complicated as pomegranate without having to learn it. Because why? She used to write down from the recipe on a whiteboard what all we would need, how much quantity we would need. If I had to double the recipe, what would I have to do? If I had to make less, what would I have to do? I taught her shapes using just cooking. I taught her various colors just using the masala dabba. And I taught her, she knows more of these English names of all these spices than I do today because she used to look them up because that's how they were in the recipe. So to to make a big story short, let's just teach skills. Education will just follow, right? The child learns irrespective of going to school or you teaching. But what is important, I'm sure others will talk about, is realizing that learning happens when you're living life and having fun and playing. I think that's about my time, Karen. You're muted, I think, Karen.
Thank you, ma'am. That was very interesting and much we can put to use, I'm sure. I do understand you have some urgent and pressing issues that you have to
Yes.
leave. So once again, a big thank you for joining us
Thank you.
today and sharing so much information with us.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Dilmeher Bharucha Bhola. Dilmeher has been a great big support to Buddy Center. And whenever I need some help, I have often found myself calling Dilmeher, and she's always obliged. Thank you so much for being there for Buddy Center, Dilmeher. Dilmeher holds a postgraduate degree in social work from TISS Mumbai, specializing in medical and psychiatric social work. She worked in Mumbai till 1999 with TISS and an NGO, Apna Laya, in the areas of substance abuse and community health with a focus on adolescents. After shifting to Pune, she has worked with children and young adults in an inclusive school, a special school, and NGOs. Her, her motivation and involvement with children and young adults keep her actively involved in skills programs for youth and training workshops for parents and teachers. Over to you, Dilmer. Dilmer, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much, everyone. And yes, so let me start with a short presentation. I will put that up. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Once again, let me put it on the slideshow mode. Yes, thank you. So behavior management at home in the new normal, out of the box is what Karen was had asked me to touch upon today. So let's rewind back to March. No one knew that life would change so fast. We never knew the word lockdown. All of our routines were in an upheaval. Everyone, life changed. Okay, we all coped. We all coped in different ways at different paces. Let's not put judgments who coped faster or earlier or sooner, better, worse. We all coped. So did our children. So did our children with special needs. And it has been a journey. So I'm just sharing a few things. I know that we've all developed our own behavior management skills with our children because we've all been at home. There was no therapy, there was no school, there was no outdoor play, but we've all coped. And I'm just sharing with you a few ideas of my colleagues and how we all did. And I'm sure you have your own strategies, which we would be happy to learn later on. So, very quickly, what is behavior? Behavior is simply the things that we do, how we react, how we talk. Okay. It could be as simple as I wake up in the morning and I go for a walk. Someone else could be I wake up in the morning and I have my cup of tea and read the newspaper. It all depends on what we are, okay? Basically, our culture, our values. If I am hungry, I would reach out to a fruit or I would reach out to a biscuit. If my child is cranky or shouting, what would I do? I would shout back or I would calm her down. Children also learn how to behave and have behaved differently because suddenly their routine has stopped. They are not going out, they are not getting their physical activity, and we are all coping with it in our different ways. So, what would the goal of behavior be? Okay, especially with children of special needs, we want them to be independent. What would we want them to do? Be able to at least complete their activities of daily living in looking at their age, looking at their abilities, looking at their needs, and we would want them to be independent because we don't want to be that crutch all through. And I know that most parents, all parents of children with special needs have this fear. And I've seen that very much in fathers, including my own husband, saying that what will happen to him or her after we are not there. So independence is one goal. Communication. Communication is also a type of behavior. We are asking children to say, to share what they feel, what they want. Okay. It is a part of behavior and growing up, and we want them to be independent in that. Socialization. I want my child to learn to be with others, not to kick, scream, shout, but also to enjoy the company of others. And I think in these COVID times, we've learned to, I think, bond with our siblings, bond with parents at home in ways, and we've been there together. And I look at it as a learning. We've all grown in our own ways and socialized at home too. Okay, very quickly, what is discipline? All right, discipline is basically a tool which promotes positive behavior and reduces uh, negative behavior. Very, very, very quickly is acceptable behavior. I want you to talk in a particular way, look after your crayons, put your toys back in, eat properly. That behavior is acceptable. What is unacceptable behavior? No digging my nose in public. There is a washroom for that. No spitting, no hitting. These behaviors are unacceptable. All right. We are not getting into the emotion bit right now. So basically, what are we doing? We are telling our children that there is a particular way of asking for what you want, for sharing what you feel, and there are certain ways in which we do it. Now, what happens? Okay, very often, let me get to the next slide. I love this quote, and it links to what Gauri ma'am said also. What do we do when a child doesn't know how to read? We say, okay, A for apple, B for ball. We teach the child. What happens when we put a child in for swimming, or if the child is older, for driving, for cycling? We teach, we hold, and we say this is the way to do it. When a child is writing, okay, standing line, sleeping line, bumpity curve, whatever, we are teaching the child. But what happens when a child yells or screams? We hit, we immediately stop. What do we do? Why do we punish? Go and stand in the corner, time out, this, that. Are we teaching the child how to behave? Very, very simply, discipline versus punishment. Okay, what is discipline? We role model this. We eat without spilling our food. We color with while, and we don't throw our crayons at someone. We are role modeling what we do. We need to sleep at a particular time. We speak in a 6-inch voice, whatever it is. Whereas with punishment, it is don't do that, stop it, kneel down, go in the corner. I know we have all been brought up with that thing, and with that kind of discipline, whether it was discipline, it was punishment. But let's be clear. The child, especially a child with special needs, gets confused, because what happens is, once you're saying keep quiet, don't cry, or we hit the child, and then we feel guilty. So then we give in and we do something which overcompensates. I know, as parents, as mothers, fathers, we have all gone through it. Let's be aware. That's all that I'm saying. Again, we are all learning, we are all coping in these times. So what are the strategies for coping? Okay, all of us, we know that in these COVID times, we have there was no sense of routine. There was no, we all knew that, I mean, we all slept initially at some odd hours, we all continued to wear the same clothes, did not dress up, did not do this. Kids also did that. But remember one thing, children with special needs, they feel safe, they feel confident when there is a routine. When there is a structure, it's easier for them to do things, to follow a pattern. Children like consistency. That it's everyone, whether it is, and I think at some point of time we also learned, we also came back to the way of functioning, and we developed our own coping mechanisms for that. So what do? Any child, okay, we maintain a timetable with realistic expectations, whatever it is, all right. Whether we are at home right now, you're the friend, you're the buddy, you're the teacher, you're the maushi, you're the therapist, everything rolled into one you're doing. So be realistic. There are certain things which you can do, certain things we will leave to later on, certain things the child can cope on his or her own. Okay, be aware of that. Certain things I can hand over to the sibling or to the grandparent. I need not be this superhero mom or dad where I'm doing everything because I feel my child is losing out. Be realistic. Keep a simple plan. What would you want to focus on? Right now, we are looking at taking turns. So we play board games. Okay. Right now, we are looking at completing our food, or looking or eating things with a different texture, especially for children on the autism spectrum who are not used to. My friends have shared that these times have been, maybe a little older children have been amazing in terms of helping them with their sensory needs. Like, there are children who are uh, young adults, okay, 12, 13, 14, even the younger ones, who are helping in the kitchen, who are working. So again, like Gauri ma'am said, there is that entire reading, processing, look at the recipe, pull out the things, cutting. So many needs are met. And then you decide if your child, if the teacher also, we have something like chefs at work and things. So if the child it does not like sticky things or this, so you say, okay, we are making something, you have to crush the biscuits with your fingers. You have to feel that. So that sensory need is met, of course, gradually, slowly. Another child who does not like sound, the teacher or the parent can say, we are going to use the mixie. You are going to put the biscuits in the mixie and see and whir and hear the sound slowly at a time. So you work with what you have, and I'm sure if you look back, you have all done this during these times. It's just that you be aware of it. Lots of little things, even with the younger kids, picking up your plate and putting it into the sink, if possible, washing it, because we know we didn't have domestic help during these times too. So every little thing is something that we work on. My last point I put on was encourage inputs from the child. Let the child also tell you what he or she would like to do, rather than it being top down. Okay, this is what I have planned for the day, you need to. And kids, even non-verbal, will show what they are interested in. Very simple specific strategies when we are looking at challenging behavior, especially. Okay, very simple, the A, B and C, nothing complicated about it. So why, let's look, a child is crying. Now, what went before? What was the trigger? Why was the child crying? When we were watching TV, we saw this ad of the wafers, and I want that wafer or packet or whatever, whether it was McDonald's or something that I want, which is not possible right now. So what do? I yell, scream, I cry. The consequence could be maybe your mom gives in and says, okay, let's have a biscuit or a cookie, or we do something, or it could be, which a normal parent would do, is yell and scream, what is wrong with you? Is it possible in this time to get this stuff? Or it could be, which we all do, or we are all guilty of, look at your sister or your brother, he's not asking for it, she's sitting quietly. We negotiate. All right, you finish this, then I'm going to give you what you need for, or we will do this. All this kind of, these are the ABC. Now, why do children behave in a particular way? Okay, very simple. It could be attention seeking. If I'm sitting on my own and if I cry, or if I'm not even hurt, if I fall, if I cry, my parents are going to come and pick me up. Okay, all kids have done this because I get that attention. So it could be for attention. It could be an access to tangibles, is if I need something. So if I throw a mini tantrum, I would get that. And escape, I know that right now I'm playing with my blocks, but I need to go and study, or I need to go in for lunch. But if I scream, yell, maybe I'll get that 5 minutes more. Maybe I did not do it. So it could be an escape from something which I'm happy doing. And sensory, yes, of course, for kids with sensory needs, it could be that it's like, when you take a child to a mall, which is not possible right now, there is a sensory overload that happens. So if that need is not met, children behave in a particular way. It could be the opposite too. If I write very well, or if I complete my task, I've put away my toys and I get a high five, I get a thumbs up, and I get praise for that. My A would be, let me do this because my parents are happy, my teachers are happy. So it could be a positive behavior too. It's not necessary that the ABC of behavior could always be negative. So if we parents and we teachers are aware that why is the child behaving in this particular way, the things just fall into place. Okay, very quickly, again, I'm sure we are all doing this. Praise good behavior, praise the process, not the outcome. Wow, what a lovely drawing. Yes, do that too, I'm not saying no, but get into, I like the way you're holding your crayon, I like the way you're doing this with such focus. Put in what the child is doing. It's just not good job, great job, good boy, good, because that it has to be linked to what the child is doing, and the process is very important. Reinforce the positive behavior. You finished your work in so much time, you ate your food without spilling. Reinforce this. Remember, discipline, we are role modeling. Redirect the behavior. Very simple. If you know that there's going to be a meltdown, there is something, you remove that. How we distract children, come on, let's look out what is happening. Or you say, okay, now we are going to do this activity. So you minimize the negative behavior immediately. Give choices whenever possible. Okay, in terms of, you need to play, this is playtime, you need to play with your blocks or your puzzles. Right now it's not screen time. Screen time is only during this period of time. Relate your consequences to your behavior. Okay, time out, bad boy, sit quietly. I understand that you've spilt the water, can we get a cloth and clean it up? I know that you have snatched this toy from your sister, brother. Can we say sorry? Okay, link it to the behavior. Am I going out of time? Very, very quickly. Countdowns. Okay, in 5 minutes, we need to wind up. Now it's 3 minutes. In 30 seconds, you can even use a visual cue. It works well and it doesn't take much effort. Very important signal phrases. You know, the child needs to know that, okay, I need to wait for my turn. It could be as simple as a hand gesture. It could be something, even in classroom we use this. All right, at 1 o'clock, you show the clock. At 1 o'clock, you can open your tiffin boxes, right? You need to raise your hand before you speak. Visual cards, cue cards, very simple. You can make them on your own. You can download them from the net, link it to what. So instead of going on talking and saying the same thing, which becomes definitely exhausting for any adult with a special needs child, you keep just show. And this works very well for ADHD children also, because they like to systemize and categorize things. I'm sure we've heard of all these words, and we are all practicing what these stories are. Visual schedules. Children love consistency and knowing. So now it is bath time, then we are attending school. If online school is happening, now we are going to play, now we're going to eat. You keep a list so that they can tick it off too. An activity or task list. It could be like repetitive. It just could be as simple like Gauri ma'am said, use a ruler, keep something where the child is able to do it. Okay. Social stories. I'm sure everyone has knows of social stories where it's very simple. I will show you pictorial ways of teaching a child, whether it is being polite, whether it is potty training, whether it is the way you use your hands. Okay, in COVID times, this is the way you wash your hands. What happens? You need to use a handkerchief when you're coughing. You need to use a mask. Very, very simple pictorial. Keep it at eye level. The child will pick up. Calming. When I need, this is a social story which is very simple, one page, which gives the child that, okay, it's okay to get angry. And when I get angry, I need to make the right choice. Kicking, hitting, rather than that, what would I do? All right. I use certain ways to calm down. It could be breathing, it could be doing yoga, it could be whatever, hugging something. There are ways of calming a child. This is all available. This is just a simple picture to give you. What you need to do is, when there is a meltdown or when there is something where the child is upset, you do not raise your voice and you do not say, keep quiet, I want you. Your tone needs to be extremely calm. I understand you are upset. We are dealing with it. I need you, whatever, not all of these, okay? I need you to take in a deep breath. I need you to count. I need you to clench your fist and open it slowly. At this point of time, you can give the child, we will calm down. If you breathe and talk nicely, I will give you your whatever toy. Now, depending on the child, you give, if the child needs his toy or a fidget spinner, you work it out. It's not very difficult, and go with your gut instinct. It works. Communication, okay, is also part of behavior. Like I said, use music. It links to everything. We have Buddhist chants, we have our mantras, we have ambient music. It helps in transition. Art, it need not be the fancy crayon boxes and the Play-Doh or whatever. Even a simple newspaper, any activity helps the child in calming down, in talking. Movement breaks. Kids, there are wonderful videos of how innovative parents have been, using sofas, using cushions and putting it and making it like an obstacle thing, making it do things. Even if you cannot, it's just simple jumping jacks, walking forward, walking backward. All these things help the child and give you that space. Most importantly, believe in your child and his abilities. I have seen a non-verbal child after a year of school actually saying ha and no. Okay, don't give up. Don't take it at one step at a time. Don't look at it that, oh, it's 9 months and my child has missed out from this or that. You are the best thing that has happened to your child, and you keep at it, and it will happen. Thank you. I will stop here. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Dilmeher. That was wonderful. Thank you, Dilmeher, for your presentation and your clarity on your approach. We have next Glennys Mendonca. Glennys has a master's degree in clinical psychology and currently working at MIT Vishwa Shanti Gurukul. She has a total of 9 years work experience working with children, parents, and schools on behavioral modification, desensitization, sensory learning, ADL, anger management, and various social, emotional, mental, and physical life skills. She has a part. She was a part of a core group at an NGO named Reach Out to Life, a suicide prevention organization aimed at spreading awareness and teaching coping and time management skills to students appearing for their board exams. She has worked at various hospitals, clinical setups, online counseling, and inclusive schools. She is a passionate worker who enjoys working with children and watching them grow with each life lesson taught during their formative years. I do remember when Maya was in your class, Glennys. You were an amazing teacher. It was very fortunate to have you share a part of her journey with you. I have watched you work with this particular class because I was there. You motivated them, you pushed them to do better, addressing their behavioral issues in class, which were plenty. Maya has had, I think, just 3 teachers in her 12 years that ever looked out for her, and you were one of them. So, yes, I'm very grateful to you. It's just incredible that after 7 years later, you are still in touch with every one of them in that class, which is absolutely incredible. They all dote on you. I know they call me up and ask for Glennys Didi. So yes, that speaks volumes about you as a person, as a teacher, and a counselor. Yes, Glennys, over to you.
Thank you, Karen. Now you made me too senti to even start today's class, but okay. So I always love starting with, a quote. So this is one of my favorite quotes, and I think we can all resonate to it. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, and it is not the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change, by Charles Darwin. And I think this is so true for all of us. Change is inevitable. It's going to happen every passing phase in our lives. And for most of it, we definitely cannot control it. But what we can definitely control, however, is how we react to these changes that happen in our lives. And how we react, it defines who we are. Now we are faced with change basically daily. How our most current change is living through this entire pandemic period, because of it our lifestyles have changed, because of it our professional and educational systems have changed, because of it our home environment has changed, and the list is never ending. Now, while I'm talking about change, there are two very important questions that come to my mind, and it's very important for us to all take heed in those questions. The first question about change is, what kind of change will it be? Is it going to be a positive change? Is it going to be a negative change? The second is how to prepare our kids, our students, our children from these changes. Now, to answer both of these questions, it's quite simple, and the answer is you. It's up to you to welcome the change or fight against it. It's up to you to look at the change as an opportunity rather than a struggle. Now, it's up to you to see the change as a situation or react to it. You alone can decide what kind of change you want to bring to yourself, to your family, to the environment you are in, to your school or to your job. Now, we are always watched through the prying eyes of our children, always. I think parents, you can agree, teachers, you can definitely agree. We are constantly being watched, like literally being watched. Now, who are we watched by? We are watched by our children, by our students, by our neighbors' kids, by our society's kids. We are constantly being watched. Now, they watch us closely and they watch exactly how we react to difficult situation. And that's where they pick up their ability to cope with change. So it's all a matter of imitation. If we are individuals that are able to cope with change, any kind of change that happens in our life, remember we are being watched and our children are looking up to us to see how we respond to these kind of changes. Now, if we showcase ourselves as parents or as teachers who are willing to basically accept change and to work with it, then our children pick up the same set of skills and coping mechanisms, which is very true. Now, like everything else, it did kind of take time for schools to adjust and to get used to the whole new way of functioning. And when I'm saying new way of functioning, I mean online. And that is what today's session is going to be about from my end. I'm going to be talking to you, I'm going to be guiding you through various out of the box strategies that can be implemented in schools. And I'm talking about schools across the globe. It can be inclusive schools, it can be secluded schools. They're just tips to just help you to find ways of just coping with this ongoing change. Now, as counselors, we are definitely not used to talking from such a distance and not able to reach out and console our students. And believe me, it's been one of the most hardest things that we ever have to do is not being there for them, not putting a hand on their shoulder, not being able to give them that kind of reassurance and hug that, okay, everything will be okay. We will get through this. And that is where all of us have realized that I think it's time for us to make a change. It's time for us to adapt. So today I'm going to be guiding you through 4 steps of counseling using out of the box strategies to help with online learning for families as well as for schools. Now, each of these 4 categories can be met through various sessions. A lot of life skill sessions that can take place in school as long as counseling sessions. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I am going to share my screen. 1 minute. Okay, can everyone see? Karen, can you see? I just need someone to tell me if everyone can see.
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to guide you through the 4 steps and which I had come up with my team in school. And we found that these steps were very necessary. And it was very important to make online learning fun, educational, and at the same time resourceful. So now the steps of counseling using out-of-the-box strategies, I came up with 4 of these steps. So the first is transition from school-based learning to online learning. Second is dealing with pandemic. Third is inculcating values, that's character building sessions. And third is training and preparing young minds. Now let's start with the first, transition from school-based learning to online learning. Now it's important while using such platforms that learning needs to be made fun. However, it is also very important to teach children about online etiquettes. It's important to guide children, be it at home, be it in school, wherever they are. Rules are important, and they help build a foundation in our learning process. Second thing that is very, very important and something that we need to keep in mind is that to help children learn, it's best to help them come up with their own workstation, and that too in their own homes. Now that most of our classes and most of our schooling and work is happening at home, why not make things a little more exciting for them, make it a little more fun for them? And at the same time, it's a learning process, it's a learning journey. So having classes on the bed or on the couch will not only make one feel very lazy or lethargic, but they are not ready to seize the day. And so helping them have a system in place and basically calling or making their own office space at home excites them and makes them want to learn more, especially when it comes to their online schooling. It's nice to have a table and a chair, and all our students and all our children have either a little photo frame on their table, have a water bottle ready on the table, or have their books and their pencils ready, and they're just ready to activate their mind and to begin each day. So one thing that we have been doing in schools, and we've been encouraging as many schools as possible, is to come up with various out of the box thinking in making online learning more fun. Now, let me give you an example of what we did in our school. A lot of the classroom teachers had a lot of queries and a lot of challenges where students either were not accustomed or tuned in following certain rules. So now it's important to make these rules fun, and it's important to make these rules real. So that is where we came up with the whole concept of move back and shine. Now, move back and shine basically is something that we came up with. Again, we have to think out of the box in such situations where each letter of the alphabet stood for a particular rule that needs to be followed. Now, this is made fun. Why? Because why make it something a little more black and white? Why not just put color in their lives? Why not just make things a little more interesting and put a funk in it? So move back and shine was basically a way for the students to just get an idea as to how to follow online etiquettes, and it worked beautiful for the students in our school. A second thing, like I had already suggested, having a learning space is something that works beautiful, where children are given the opportunity to act like grown-ups. And why not? Children love to play either house or teacher. So why not play office? And why not use those kind of skills in actually developing certain attitudes? Like, for example, making sure that they're sitting at their table on time 5 minutes before class starts, or making sure they have their water bottle on the table so they don't have to move from the table to keep getting their water, or having their color pencils and their boxes and their books all ready. So this is just an idea of what we had done in school, which we have shared with other schools as well, where you come up with a checklist. And this is something not only schools, even parents at home can come up with a checklist where it's there on the table. The children know that, okay, my class starts in half an hour. These items need to be kept on the table. And voila, they are ready, they are prepared. And these small little activities that we do with our own children or students, it just helps them become more independent and become more responsible. So this is something that we had done. Now I'm going to go to dealing with the pandemic period. Now, it is important for us to address the issues at hand and reinforce positive attitudes. Now, what we do on a regular basis is we begin each day on a more mindful note. Now, it's very important considering this entire lockdown period and being confined in the four corners of our homes. It's very important for us to learn or to kind of understand how it is to be mindful. And so beginning each day on a mindful note teaches kids the art of being a little more calmer during classes. So starting each class on a breathing wave, starting each class with positive affirmation, saying that, okay, I am good, I am honest, I am smart, I am brave. So this is another thing that we have done for children, and it's for children with special needs, it's for children with regular needs. And it's very important for us to realize that every child needs it. It's not a particular child who will benefit from it, but a array of children who will benefit from it. So starting your day, having your classes, having your sessions, or even if it is just parents and their children, being a little more mindful, starting the day on a more mindful note, or talking about positive affirmations by confirming and reaffirming that you are smart. And I'm so happy that you're sitting during your online classes. You are honest. You always tell me the truth, that you are getting tired of sitting behind the screen. You are brave, because most children find it challenging to sit behind the laptop or the computer or the tab for more than an hour, but you do it for 2 hours. So it's very important to use our words of affirmation. Second thing, to help them deal with the whole pandemic, what we had done and which we found very resourceful is to give them the feeling that they can contribute as well. So this is where we came up with the whole concept of the emergency kit. Now, in the emergency kit, we taught the students how there are ways that we can prevent ourselves from, catching the virus, and what are the different ways we need to make sure that we will have our masks at hand, probably gloves, probably sanitizers, not touching our face. So what we have done is we've used Coco. Coco is our sea turtle, and we've used Coco to help us. And when I say us, I mean to help us teachers, to help us schools, to help counselors, to teach life lessons to the children. And so what Coco does is, Coco basically teaches the students how to keep an emergency kit ready at home. And in the emergency kit, they have all the necessary items that's needed for when someone has to leave the house. So it can be your mother, it can be the father, it can be the grandparents, it can even be the child. But they need to make sure that the emergency kit is always available. Okay, so the next that I want to talk about is inculcating values. So what we do in schools during our life skills sessions, we make it our priority to inculcate values, no matter whether it's online or whether it's face to face. But we cannot lose sight on what is very important, which is inculcating values, which is character building sessions. Now, these are all ideas that are done in school. And let me remind you again, for all the parents who are watching us, it can be done at home as well. It's just a matter of you putting in your own mirch masala in it just to make it a little more exciting. So inculcating values, that's character building sessions. Now, it's very important to guide children and to help them become better versions of themselves. And what best way to do it than to teach them certain values, and values that's not going to just help them now, but going to help them in the future. Because as counselors, our major focus is not just working on their present, but working on how things are going to be when they grow up, how things are going to be when they're 20 years old, how things are going to be when they start probably working or start doing things more independently, separate from their lives at home. So that's why it's important to polish these skill sets, and it's very important to introduce these skill sets with children. And when I say with children, I don't mean just grade 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean as young as grade 1 can also be taught. And that's what we do in school. We don't really look at children from their age perspective per se. We look at it from how much they're able to absorb. And so how to be a problem solver is one such activity that we have done with our kids. And another value-based session is the kindness challenge. Now, we need to make online learning fun. We need to make it a learning journey as well. And what best way or better way to do it than to combine fun and learning together? And that is why I have a challenge. And you will see a change in the students where they find that they are able to do things that are totally out of the box, something that they never really thought they could do. And it's just something that they learn from. So the kind of challenge is another session that we had conducted. Another is a friendship challenge. Now, we all know that because of this entire pandemic period, most or all of us have actually been away from our friends, our peers. And we may not realize it, but social connection is something that our children need a lot of. So if we can't do it physically, why not virtually? So hence we came up with the whole friendship challenge for them to just sharpen their social skills and to make sure that they don't lose sight on what really matters, and that friendship lasts irrespective if they can't be there face to face. Here's another skill that we had done. Basically, another value that I wanted to teach the children. It's about responsibility. And I felt the best way to teach anything is if we ourselves are the ones who come forward and conduct it ourselves. We are the ones who practice it. So we need to practice what we preach at the end. So I came up with an activity on responsibility, and the activity is where I picked up two pots of plants. I have a rosemary plant that I had named Rosie, and I have a peppermint plant which I named Minty. And I started looking after my plants. I knew the kind of responsibility that it takes to grow these two plants. It needs sunlight, it needs a little amount of water, and it needs care to take care of. Same way, I have used the same activity with the kids in school. And when I say kids in school, I mean kids from every single classroom, kids from every single walk of life, kids from all the different kinds of abilities. They all can learn responsibility by this one single activity. So all of the students, they enjoy getting their own plant, giving it a name, because when you give it a name, there's a more personal connection between you and your responsibility. And this is one activity that worked really well, and it taught children how to be more responsible. It taught children how to be more, how to focus on time management, because it's important to put the plants out in the sun. Now, some of us live, in a bungalow. Maybe some of us live in a colony, or, in a row house, or some of us live in basically floors where we don't receive the sun at all times. So it's very important for children to learn and to understand how it is to take responsibility of something other than ourselves. Okay, so the next step that I wanted to take you through is training and preparing young minds. Now, it's important for all of us to raise young leaders and to help them find their voice. Now, when I say leaders, yes, I mean every single child, be it a child who took time to read, be it a child who took time to speak, be it a child who took time to probably, follow their activities of daily living. That's fine. We all have our own pace in life. I mean, who is there to judge that this milestone needs to be covered at a particular age and this milestone needs to be overcome at a particular age? There ain't a single set that we need to follow, because everyone's pattern and everyone's growing up and everyone's style is very different and unique in its own beautiful way. But what is very important, we need to, and when I say we need to, I can't stress more than enough when I say we need to start raising our children to become leaders, to become independent, responsible leaders, to help them find a voice and to make a difference not only in their lives but in the lives of others. And this is something that I focus a lot on in our school. Now, this is an activity that we have done. And mind you, when I say we have done it with grade 2, as small as grade 2, how to become a great leader. It is very important for children to understand what are the different qualities. Now, obviously, the qualities will differ for a grade 2, it will differ for a grade 4, it will differ for a grade 6. But it is very important to teach them how it is to be a great leader in life, to be patient, to be more focused, to be more kind, to be a problem solver, to think out of the box. And each of these sessions, each of these tips of being a great leader, each of these secrets had its own charm to it. It had its own activity to it. And again, if you can see, Coco is the one who's introducing how to be a great leader. Making smart choices. Children need to understand how important it is to make smart choices, especially when they are perturbed. It's very important to take a step back. It's very important when you are upset or when you feel that, you're overflowing with strong emotions. It's very important to run and drink water. Take 3 deep breaths. Think about your consequences, because there are 2. There is a positive consequence if your behavior leans towards a more positive side, and there is a negative consequence if your behavior leads towards something more negative. talk to yourself. It's very important to encourage children and students to talk to themselves, reason out as to what they are feeling, and what they think that the proper outcome would be if they react in a positive or negative way, and then teaching them how to act. Another session that we had was the 5 finger rule of mastering patience. And the reason behind most of these sessions is just because our own teachers and parents asked us to come up with ways or come up with ideas, things that are out of the box, to just help students and to help their children to be able to be seated at their desk, to be able to focus during online learning. Because at the end of the day, when the time does come and when we do start with regular schooling, it's important not to lose touch with a lot of our values, a lot of our aspects. So the 5 finger rule of mastering patience was another activity that we had done. Now, mastering patience is not something we just do in school. It can be done at home as well. So parents out there, if you feel that this is something that you could probably work with, then you can have like a chart paper and you can make your own chart and stick it on your fridge or stick it on your child's bedroom door. And something that is very visual and it's out there and it can be seen is something that you learn faster from. But the key point is consistency. We need to be very consistent in what we are trying to teach our children. Extremely important. It makes no sense if we want to teach them something and we only teach them for a period of a few days and then we stop. It makes no sense. We need to be consistent in what we are teaching. Second, do you have what it takes? Now, this is another session that we had done with the children where we felt it was important for children to, understand that they're not too young to be inventors. They're not too young to do something great in life. It can be just about anything. It can be a new ingredient that they have come up with or a new cooking style that they have come up with. And why not? It's very important, however young they are, for them to develop passion for things that they love and to use that passion in doing something beautiful. And I think that is something that we all can learn from. That in life, if you are passionate about something, if you just fall in love with what you do, you will automatically realize that there is so much more you can contribute. And so this is something that we teach kids as young as grade 2 and 1, where we tell them that you're not too young to be inventors. You're not too young to take up on a particular skill that could help you, not only now, but also for your future. So these are basically ideas. One second, let's stop sharing. These are basically ideas that I wanted to share with everyone, those who work in schools and could use these ideas even to work at home. We need to start, honestly, we need to start thinking out of the box, and we need to learn to find ways of welcoming change in our lives and in our children's lives, especially during this entire pandemic period. So I hope I didn't rush too much. So that is all from my end. Karen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Glennys. Lovely takeaways for the afternoon. Thank you so much. Our next speaker joins us all the way from Australia. Thank you, Hailey, for joining us right across time zones, and most of all for having to hurry back from your son's match. Thank you. Hailey Rodrigues Suttati works as a learning support officer within the classroom setting. He mainly works with children who have special needs in a mainstream school. He has worked in this setting for the last 7.5 years and was a volunteer before that in a special school. He has a diploma in early childhood education and a certificate in education support in addition to her BCom degree. Over to you, Hailey.
Hi, everyone. I don't know if you all know, though, Karen is my beautiful cousin.
Yeah. Additional qualification.
Yes, and she's I think she's doing an amazing job with Buddy Center. I had the privilege of visiting Buddy Center the last time I was in India, and I think she does an amazing job. So firstly, Well done, Karen. I think you're doing an
Thank
amazing
you.
job. Where do I start? 2020. I don't think any of us have expected 2020 to be the year it has been. So it's been challenging, I think, to say the least, for a lot of people. And a lot of people have actually thrived in this during this year. I know kids who have done really, really well during remote learning and who were otherwise struggling in the classroom. So resilience, that's what I would like to focus on today. Let's take us as adults. How resilient have we had to be during this time? We've had to change our ways, change the way we do things. I know, obviously, coming from Melbourne, we've had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. And we went, I think it was something like 65 days just in lockdown. So we weren't allowed to move within further than 5 kilometers from our home. And there was a lot of restrictions and we had curfews. I mean, not any different to a lot of parts in the world, but it was really hard. And it was really hard for a lot of parents and students to cope with all of it, especially being in a country that is so sparsely populated. I think our social connections make a very big difference. So when I talk about resilience, it's resilience within the classroom and resilience during remote learning. So the things that I do as an educator within the classroom is let's just say, like a lot of you all have said, it's out of the box. So not every day is the same. Not every, and someone once told me, actually a teacher from within our school, she's been a teacher for the last 33 years. And she told me something and that made a lot of sense and that kind of resonated with me. And she said, if you know one child with autism, you know one child with autism. It is not that you know everyone, because they are just all so very different. And I don't only speak of children that have autism, I'm talking about children in general. So the things that I have used over our period of remote learning and since we've come back into school and things like that is, I don't have a presentation, to be honest, or anything, but I can talk to you about things that I've used. We live in a world where our resources are so limitless. And the things that I use most frequently, so let me say, like, if I'm working within the classroom, we use something called the zones of regulation. Now, the zones of regulation is something very similar to what Dr. Gauri mentioned earlier, as in the ruler. She spoke about emotions being happy or sad. But we have the zones of regulation is 4 zones, and that is the emotions that your child has. And we have more than those 2 emotions. Those 2 are really important, but we have more than those emotions. So they are in zones, and those zones are colored. So you have the red zone, which is like, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do with myself. And a lot of the times that's what we will use because it's a visual. We can use it as a visual for a non-verbal child, and we can use it for a child who just is so upset or doesn't know what to do that cannot express himself or herself. So you have the red zone, you have the yellow zone, you have the blue zone, and you have the green zone. So before we go into a meltdown, we use and we talk a lot about the zones of regulation at school. So the zones of regulation is basically, I'll give you a typical, and this can be used, we have used this in the kindergarten setting, and we even use it, it's used up to grade 12 over here, the zones of regulation. It's something that is very, very widely used across schools over here. And so it's, you walk into the classroom, say after lunch or whatever, you have everyone's buzzing, everyone's going around, whatever. And then there's just a plain chart on the wall. And then you go and pick, and you have the kids' photographs, and they go and put a color on a Velcro sheet, which is just a plain laminated sheet. Just go and put what zone they're in. And that way you get to know what what's happening within your classroom setting. Can you start the lesson? Is it like more of them are in the red zone than they are in the green zone? So the green zone is your happy zone. You have the blue zone, which is like, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. But those zones of regulation it's not necessarily that you can use it only in the classroom setting. I'll give you a simple example. You go out, which of course I know in India at the moment, you can't really do, like, you can't go to a mall or use any of that. But say you go out to a mall and your child is nervous with the crowds, with the noise, with anything. And they may not be able to actually articulate that or say that, or, it's just an emotion they may not be able to tell you. So a child can say as simple as like, I think I'm getting into the red zone. So the words we use is, so how do you think you can get back into the green zone, which is the calm, happy space that you're meant, like, we would like you to be in. So how do you think you can get back into the green zone? So the child could say something like, I want to go home, or I just need, or it could be the child is nervous to go to the toilet, or just say, I want to go to the toilet. I just need 5 minutes, or I don't know. And as a parent, as an educator, you can help the child get into that zone. So that's something that we use a lot, and that's the zones of regulation, which I think as a parent and as an educator, it is really a valuable tool to use. So that's one of the things I use a lot at school. And say how do you use the zones of regulation after you have a meltdown, or after your child has already reached that stage? So you basically again go back. It's about giving your child the choice to understand their own emotions, to understand what I'm feeling, how can I change it, making them more, I guess, responsible for the way they feel and how they can get back to their own zone. So it's giving them that choice after a meltdown as well. So how do you get back into the green zone? Some of the things that we use to get back into the green zone within school is I created something called a resilience box with one of my kids in the classroom. So a resilience box was just a plain old shoe box. And we spoke about, okay, so if I'm in the red zone, or if I'm in the blue zone or in the yellow zone, and I really want to get back into the green zone, what could I do? So it was like a brainstorming session. And this is with a 5-year-old child. And he was like, I could listen to music. Okay, that is a good thing. You want to listen to music, that's fine. Then we spoke about, what if it's getting too loud and you're getting really frustrated? What could you do? So he was like, I could use my headphones. Fine. And it was giving him that choice of making his own decision of how he could get back into the green zone. So it was, you don't have to use something elaborate. You can use things that are within your home setting, within your classroom, to kind of give them that choice to get back into a more calmer space. Another thing we had in the green zone is, like I think Dilmeher had it, cards that says, they're just calming down cards. So we have cards as well that have that are visuals, and say he or she could go and pick up one card and say, this is what I would like to do. And that could be just drinking some water, just going into a quiet space. A lot of the times they just want something that's quiet, that's dark, that just gives them that time to calm down. Or another thing that I do a lot with my kids with the classroom is I put 5 fingers up and we're blowing out candles. So this is my candles, and they blow out my candles one by one. And that's actually because I had a little boy who every time I'd say to him, do you think you want to just breathe? I'd be like, I can't breathe. I cannot breathe. Like it was, I can't do it. So I was like, oh, okay, so we can't breathe. So what could we do? It's like, can you imagine, these are my candles. Let's blow out my candles. But he was breathing. That's what he was doing. Without realizing, he was breathing. He was calming himself down. So it's just small things like that that we use within the classroom. But talking about that is very different to remote learning. remote learning was a whole other challenge. But we used an app called Seesaw, which was one of our greatest tools that we had during remote learning. And that also had a lot of SEL lessons, social emotional learning lessons, which helped with developing strategies to learn with children. But another thing that we learned is, as educators, we had to be flexible. We just had to be flexible. And that was something that I've learned within the classroom setting as a parent and just in general, that you just have to be flexible. Because, like, for example, I'll give you a day. I'll walk into the classroom and I go, okay, so we have a schedule that is like a timetable on the board, but it's a visual schedule. So this is our schedule. I could have a child walk into the classroom and have an absolute meltdown because we're doing an art lesson first. And I may not know that. It may just be that particular day. And it can go into a full meltdown where there's like, it's going to take a long time to come back from there. So it's every day, like I said, is just different. It's just learning as an educator, as a parent, to be flexible. So okay, fine. We're doing art right now. Do you want to do art? No, I don't want to do art for whatever particular reason, because we have to leave the classroom. I don't like the teacher, and those could be just excuses. It may be, I love the teacher last week, but today I don't like the teacher. It could be as simple as that. Or no, that's blue in color, so I can't do it because it's blue. It could be as simple as that. I can't do it. It's blue. I just can't do it. So it's going around from, to be adaptable to those changes. Another thing I use a lot in the classroom is first, then, and later. So first and then is if I want a child to do a particular activity, like, for example, we're doing writing in the classroom. I have a child who does not like writing at all, refuses to hold a pencil because he says he can't touch wood. So he'll give me excuses. One day he can touch it, one day he can't touch it. It just depends on the day. So what do we do? So we have a little chart, and we can use it as a visual chart. It's just 3 boxes. That is first, then, and later. Now, the first, then, and later is my way of getting him to do his activity. His later is his choice of a reward. That's what we call it. But his reward is not something that he can just pick. So it is a choice. So I will give him a choice of his reward. So first I put it in front of him. I'm going, okay, this is what do you want to pick as your reward? We have 2 choices. I'll give you an example. You can play a game, or you have to watch a video with me on the iPad. The game, again, will be a game that, say, for example, we're learning personal space. So I have a hula hoop. I put it around me, and we talk about my hula hoop. That's my hula hoop. You can't enter my hula hoop. Same way I gave him or her a hula hoop, and that's their personal space. So I can't enter their hula hoop. So it's an imaginary hula hoop that we can use whenever we want. It's an imaginary hula hoop that the child can use when they don't want someone to enter their personal space. So they think they're playing a game with me with a hula hoop, but it's actually a learning activity. Or I say, okay, you've got 5 minutes on the iPad. Okay, so, oh yes, I get the iPad, but it's an activity of my choice. So over here, I could choose something like Pevin and Sarah, which is a YouTube clip on resilience again, or you could have, or anything that you choose. Or we could play Eggheads, which is a word game, but again, it's just teaching them, but they think they're getting a reward time on the iPad. And my first and then is the activity of the classroom, like what we're doing in class. So first we're doing writing, and then second we're going to read it out or whatever, and then you get your reward time. But a reward time could also be have a snack. because a lot of the time we've realized is when the children are eating, they tend to focus less on their again, I use the word their zone. So if they're really upset, they're really angry, the focus is then on the eating part of it. So those are some of the things that I use within the classroom. But another very good thing that I've used is we go into a meltdown and I use the size of the problem. So again, it's just a laminated sheet. It's a sheet that tells me what's the size of my problem. So when I work with the little ones, the size of my problem could be an ant size problem. It could be, one of my kids chose an angelfish size problem, or it's an elephant size problem. And a lot of the times my kids will come back to me and say, it's elephant size problem. And it's not necessarily that. And I go, okay, let's think about it. It's again being flexible, being just patience. Okay, if this is an elephant size problem, so what would be the ant size problem to it then? And they go like, okay, it's an angelfish size problem. It's not an elephant size problem. Okay, fine. Then if it's according to you, it's an angelfish size problem. So again, let's think about the ant size problem. What's the ant size problem? And they go like, they'll think about it. So just giving them that opportunity to think about their reaction. Do I need to have such a big reaction to the action? Like, does it have to be so big? And then we usually come down to, it takes a while. It's not always it's not a constant thing. It takes a while. We come back to, okay, it's an ant size problem. Okay, so what can we do to fix it? It's teaching kids to problem solve themselves. And a lot of the time, that's what strategies we use, problem solving themselves. This is your reaction. Another thing that we do is, if they have a really big reaction to something, what we tend to do is, okay, I'm sorry, but I can't speak to you right now because you're having a really big reaction. What would you like to do? So again, I will direct them back to their resilience box. And it could be as simple as getting a squishy ball, just plain old bubble wrap, just pressing the bubble wrap. And bubble wrap, I find, is a really, really effective tool because it's teaching them their motor skills, as well as they concentrate so much on it that they forget about their reaction, and it calms them down. So just in a little shoebox, I've just got a squishy ball, bubble wrap, and some cards. And that's their choice again. It's handing them that choice, giving them, giving them the opportunity to be independent, to make their own choice, to bring themselves back into the green zone. And that's a lot of the times what we do. They bring themselves back. We can guide them towards it. Like I can guide my child and say, or the children and say, why don't you go into your resilience box? And then when you're calm, you can come and speak to me because I don't understand what you're saying. I cannot understand you. And if I cannot understand you, I can't help you. Or another thing that I use a lot in the classroom is we all have just like a high five. And if the kids in the classroom, they need help, it just says help. And it's on a popsicle stick. And they basically put their hand up and it's like, help me. So we're not screaming, we're not shouting in the classroom. We're not saying, I need help, help me, help me, help me. No, it's just a popsicle stick with a hand. They can decorate it the way they want, however they want. They can not decorate it if they want. And that's just their way of saying, I need help. And a lot of the times, visuals are really, really important. And we find that's one of our biggest assets. It's having visuals in the classroom. So that's some of the strategies we've used in the classroom. But again, going back to remote learning, it's been challenging, but it's also been very rewarding because we've been able to see children within their own home setting, or with what calms them down if they're having a meltdown, what doesn't calm them down, what we could then use within the classroom setting. So Seesaw is one of the apps, like I said earlier, is what we used, and that's what we used as a whole. So the group plan was Seesaw, but we also make adjustments to our plan. So for example, on Seesaw, if I was having a lesson for the whole class that had, let's say we're doing tallying, and I'm talking about a classroom and we're doing tallying in maths, simple tallying, and it was 3 slides. I would modify it then for another, for my child with special needs, and they would do only one slide. So it's that modification. It's just that being flexible that I think really helps, because let's look at it from their point of view as adults. I mean, if someone comes and tells you, this is what we're doing and this is how you should be doing it, you may not understand it because that may not be your way of understanding it. But if someone comes and tells you, this is what I would like you to do, and this is what I think we should do, but do you have an input? Like, what do you think? That gives you more flexibility. And I find that when I give the children the choice of giving their input, it works a lot better in understanding the situation, whether it's reading, writing, maths, whatever it is. Like a simple example is the same little boy who doesn't like to write. He does not like to write at all. So he said, I cannot write, I'm not going to write. And he had this big meltdown of he was not going to write. So I said, okay. I said, when you're calm, you can come to me. And he came to me and he said, I cannot write because I think that the school needs to not give us so many tasks. So I said, okay. I said, and who could we tell? And he goes, the principal. I said, okay. I said, do you think we could write that down in a letter? Because she's really busy, And he goes, okay. I'll write it down. So he wrote that down. And I said, do you have any other thing that you want to write down? And he goes, oh, yes, I can. We have to have longer lunch breaks. I said, okay, write that down. So he wrote, we have to have longer lunch breaks. And just by writing that, I modified his task. He actually wrote 2 whole pages when he was refusing to write 1 word. So it's just that flexibility in learning that has been like, it's just, again, you think outside of the box. It's we want to write a procedural text. Let's just say we're writing a procedural text. How do you get a kid who doesn't want to write a procedural text? You're cooking at home. Like earlier it was said about cooking. Write down what you're doing. That's writing a procedural text. It's changing that attitude, that behavior. And that, I think for me, that's been, for the last 7.5 years, I think that's been my biggest thing. It's adaptation. Every day is a new day. Every day is something different. It's just learning to be flexible. And yeah, that's my experience, has been my experience so far at school and at home. Yeah.
Thank you, Hailey. Thank you so much. That was indeed very helpful, and I'm sure we could use some of it here too. So I would like to close this afternoon by saying that we teach our children to color inside the lines. We expect them to do that. And then we expect adults to think outside the box. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. Something for us to think about. So thank you so much, Dilmeher. Thank you, Hailey. Thank you, Glennys, for spending your Sunday afternoon with us, and for all the efforts for putting out all this priceless, valuable information that you have shared with us. Really do appreciate your time and all the valuable inputs you have shared with us. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Karen.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.